Hi, I'm Sal Mercogliano, an associate professor of history at Campbell University, a former merchant mariner, and an instructor in maritime industry policy at the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. This is the April 16th edition of What's Going on in the Suez. Well, I had a big update on Wednesday. Kind of didn't have one yesterday because we did a special talking about the evolution of container ships. But today, I want to talk about what is going on right now in the Suez, because there has been some developments and some things we probably need to be looking out for coming in the future. So let me get you over to my screen here. So everybody's favorite vessel, motor vessel Evergreen, is still anchored in the Suez, still in the Great Bitter Lake. She hasn't moved. We do know that as of April 4th or 5th, the American Bureau of Shipping had completed its survey of the vessel. That's the classification society. They are the ones who basically tell the insurance companies and all the underwriters whether the vessel is safe and meeting all requirements. We know the vessel had been damaged forward, but they have certified the vessel clear to navigate. Unfortunately, that's not what is going to happen because the Egyptian government has arrested the vessel, as we mentioned. By arresting the vessel, they are holding the vessel basically responsible for damages. This is the letter that Evergreen Marine put out on April 14th, 2 days ago with this. Basically what they say here, and I think it's really an important one to do this, in accordance with information from the UK P&I Club, and I'll show you their statement in a minute, the ship owners received a claim from the Suez Canal Authority for a sum of $916 million on April 7th to cover losses during the Evergreen's grounding. The amount included a $300 million claim for a salvage bonus. The other 316, which I don't mention here, is for lost wages and recoup and paying everyone from the digger to the tugboats to the dredges money. So the 316 does that. The 300 million is a salvage bonus, money they should receive for assisting in the salvage of the vessel, basically a fee. And then the other 300 million on top of the 616 million is a $300 million claim for loss of reputation and so on. Loss of reputation, again, I guess the Suez feels slighted by the Evergreen going aground, and they want some restitution from that. I don't know if they'll ever get that in a court of law, but the problem is the Egyptians hold the Evergreen. You'll see here during the meeting between the ship owners and the Suez on April 12th, no consensus was reached on claims as largely unsupported and lacked any detailed justification. The following day, the SCA immediately filed an application to arrest the vessel, which was granted by an Egyptian court. In order to lift the arrest order as soon as possible, Evergreen is urging all concerned parties to facilitate a settlement agreement to be reached. Meanwhile, Evergreen is investigating the scope of such a court order and studying the possibility of the vessel and cargo on board being treated separately. So one of the things that is being discussed here, and I'm going to talk about the UK P&I issue here in a second, is can they separate the cargo from the vessel? Evergreen wants the ship. They really don't care about the cargo. Can they get the cargo off the vessel and the cargo held for these claims, which can be done. If we go over here to the map, Evergreen is right here in the Great Bitter Lake, but if you sail northward up in the canal, up into Port Said right here, this is the APM container terminal right here. This is the APM terminal. This is what it looks like. That's the one of the two canal lanes right there. You'll see the canal kind of has a fork right here. That's one of the two lanes right there. And the terminal basically has the capability, if you look at their capabilities, to basically offload ship-to-shore cranes, 21, max lift capacity 90 tons, 52.5 meters above rail, 23 container rows that can handle Evergreen. They can offload Evergreen there. They can take all the cargo off the vessel. The vessel's clear to sail. They can sail her up to Port Said, offload all the boxes if they wanted to, and hold the cargo for the payment necessary. That may be what happens. We don't know yet. We just don't know what's going to happen. This is the P&I insurance statement also from the other day. And they go in here, and they give you a little bit more detail here. Carefully considered, this is the point I want to show here. On 12 April, a carefully considered and generous offer was made to the Suez Canal Authority to settle their claim. We were disappointed by the Suez Canal Authority's subsequent decision to arrest the vessel today. So obviously they offered money. They came in and made an offer to the Suez Canal. We don't know what that is. We have no idea. I can tell you personal experience by going through the Suez Canal several times. You do not go through the Suez Canal if you do not make generous offers to the pilots, for example. They will lose your place in line and they will send you to the end, or basically hold you for days. Unless you make generous offers, usually cigarettes and other trinkets from the vessel, hats, shirts, and feed them very well. Always feed Suez Canal pilots very well. Just the nature of doing business in Egypt. They go on here to talk very much what they said. They talk about here that the ABS completed their surveys on 4 April and issued a certificate of fitness to allow the vessel to move from the Great Bitter Lake to Port Said, where she will then undergo re-inspection before completing her voyage to Rotterdam. So they're clear to sail her up to Rotterdam, excuse me, up to Port Said. And again, this may be where they offload the cargo. Again, one of the things that's been done is general average has been declared against the cargo. The ship company, Evergreen, has declared general average, meaning that part of the salvage cost will be spread across the value of the containers. So depending on the percentage of value of the containers on board, each of those shippers will have to pay a certain amount of money. Usually it's about 10% of the value to be held and then reimbursed, or more levied later. This is a unique situation. We don't know what's going to happen here. They're holding Evergiven right now for an undetermined period of time. The problem is Evergiven is one ship in the Evergreen lines. They're one ship in one of the 3 major alliances. It's not exactly clear how the 9 big shipping companies deal with this element of Egypt holding the ship captive along with its crew. Now, I will mention that the Egyptians did allow 2 of the crew members to go home on urgent personal reasons. There's no definition of what urgent personal reasons are. 25 crew members on board. They're Indians. So they've been allowed to go home. Not exactly sure which ones went and who. Probably not the master, I'll tell you. But meanwhile, we're seeing the vessel being held for an undetermined period of time. So we're not exactly clear. There was a story over here in Maritime Insight talking about the concerns being expressed. The Times of India report that all Indian Seafarers Union has sent urgent missives to the Director General of Shipping and the German Ship Management, BSM, after giant container ship Evergiven with 25 Indian crew members on board was seized, and $1 billion compensation demand for the canal blockage. They want the Indian crew treated well. And again, this is India. India is going to come in and want to make sure that their nationals are treated with respect and not thrown away and left on board. There's a BBC story of a vessel with a Syrian crew member on board that's been held by the Egyptians since 2017. And so India is making a demand that these vessels be that these crew members be treated correctly. They talk about here, among the 25 Indian crews on board, 3 are from Mumbai, the rest are from southern India, ship presently at anchor. So they're talking about the vessel and the ship. Again, this is a multinational jurisdictional issue right here. So what happens with the cargo and the ship is not clear. Again, Evergiven is such a large ship, you cannot get those containers off unless you go into a terminal. Fortunately, the APM terminal in Port Said can't handle this vessel. The problem is you're going to stack up containers and use up valuable space to offload anywhere from 12 to 15,000 containers from Evergiven and hold them there. And the question is, what happens to that goods? They're going to be seized and surrendered. Does the owners pay the additional money, or they just leave them there? And we've seen what happens when cargo is abandoned in ports. We had a very present view of that with a load of ammonium nitrate that was left in the port of Beirut. And during some welding operations in one of the storage warehouses, there was a massive explosion that leveled the port. So, abandoned cargo is an issue at times because we're not always sure what's in these boxes and containers, because those containers are screened. All containers are screened. You have to present paperwork from them, from where they're originally loaded. You have to show a bill of lading from them. But typically, very few containers are ever physically opened and inspected. There are screening machines and scanning machines in ports like Rotterdam, Felixstowe, and Hamburg. if necessary, to send them through for x-rays and radiation scans and sniffers for hazardous material. But again, because of the nature of global shipping, and go back to the episode I filmed yesterday, it talks about how much we've scaled up in global shipping in terms of containers. It's really difficult. These are steel boxes. You can't see through steel boxes. And if you can see through a steel box, the problem is they're 21 deep, 24 across, 23 across on some of these vessels. It is just difficult. We're also seeing the impact of this in other places. I'm going to have a report next week and talk about this. The Port of Los Angeles gave a report on what's going on the West Coast. And the West Coast, Long Beach, Los Angeles, now Oakland, as a matter of fact, all of them are feeling ripples right now from COVID. And they cannot move containers fast enough. And this has a lot to do not just with the amount of containers being offloaded. One of the interesting things about Long Beach, Los Angeles, hadn't really thought of, but it was mentioned in the talk, is a larger percentage of vessels, the vessel's cargo, are offloaded in those ports than in many other ports. Many other ports, the cargo's, only a fraction of the cargo is offloaded, but in Los Angeles, Long Beach, almost a good chunk of almost all the containers come off a vessel. And that makes a lot of lay time for the vessels. And there are issues with trucks and chassis and railways. Containers are sitting on Los Angeles, Long Beach for way too long. And I mentioned this the other day, and I failed to do it, but somebody reminded me. Even in the Port of Montreal, we're seeing this. And we're seeing a partial strike right now in the Port of Montreal offloading, which could manifest itself into a full strike, which would have huge implications because, again, a lot of that cargo coming from Asia to Europe is transloaded on the vessels, shipped across to the East Coast of North America, including the Port of Montreal. And then what we're basically seeing is the beginning of those ripples. This is another report out of India, where they're starting to see some of these elements start hitting in India, where the slowdown, the 6 days that the Suez was closed, is now causing backlogs in ports in India. Ironically, Indian ports are not very big. The big terminal is actually on Sri Lanka, one of the island nation off the southeastern coast of India. India itself does not have huge terminals in many ways, and so it doesn't have a lot of surge capacity to handle this. And so we're starting to see the butterfly effects here of what we knew was going to happen start to manifest itself. European ports are reporting the same thing. So again, latest update on Ever Given and what's going on. Going to be watching out for the vessel to move up to Port Said next. That'll be the next big movement for the vessel, probably for further inspection by the American Bureau of Shipping and for a potential offload of some, if not all, of its containers. So thanks. I appreciate you following and watching. I have a link in here too to a talk I did with the Center of International Maritime Security, about a 40-minute talk I gave on the Ever Given and some elements of it, a little bit more of a military focus versus commercial focus. If you're interested in that, SimSec, great organization. They have a great podcast. A lot of different topics. If you're interested in military topics, and particularly in international maritime security, hardly recommend them. They do a great job. I've been asked to do several podcasts with them, and it's always a great pleasure and honor to do it with them. If you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button if you like it. Share it with a friend. And again, happy to share information with you. I will link all these stories into the show notes so you can follow along and see what's going on for yourself and check up on me. I by no means are an expert and master in all these things. Trying to put together a lot of varied elements here and present a coherent discussion of what's going on with this vessel as an example of maritime shipping in general. Next week, we're going to be talking about some other things and really blossoming out into some other areas a little bit on each broadcast, maybe include something. There's piracy afloat off the coast of West Africa. There was a disaster in the Gulf of Mexico with a rig that toppled over and some of the crew members are lost. And there is a prolonged salvage going on in Brunswick, Georgia for an overturned car carrier. But that's next week. So thanks for tuning in. Appreciate it. And see you on the next episode of What's Going On in Suez.